The May 18th Water Trust, Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust meeting will be in order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the May 4th meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the May 4th meeting. Are there comments or questions, additions, corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Next item is the consent docket.
Move subject to individual consideration. Second.
Have a motion and a second on the consent docket. Are there items to be considered individually? Hearing none, all those in favor of the consent docket say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent docket's approved. Next item is item 4, which is a series of short series of reports, the first being a status report from the Utilities Department for April.
Move we receive the report. Second.
A motion and a second to receive the report. Are there comments or questions on that?
Just a question, Mr. Chairman. Are we pleased with the condition of the lakes, the total water supply, as we go into the summer months?
The lake condition is very good. Normally in April or May, we receive a refilling of Lake Hefner, which hasn't actually happened yet. Yet the lake itself is only about a foot down or foot and a half down from maximum today. So we think we're in really good shape. The exception, of course, remains Lake Draper. The Atoka pump station is down. It's coming back up in about 6 weeks, so that we can begin pumping into Lake Draper and maybe recover a little bit or stay even for a while we complete the Atoka pipeline.
So even if we have the worst case scenario, a hot, dry summer, we're in good shape as far as water's concerned?
Yes, we are in good shape.
Okay, thank you.
Have a motion and a second to receive the report 4A. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next item is item 4B. It's the operating cash fund projection report for May of 2010.
Move the report.
Motion and a second to receive this report. Are there comments or questions on it? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Report's received. Next item is a presentation concerning the Utilities Department response to the storms.
Mr. Chairman, we had a tornado go through your Draper Lake and West Elm Creek Reservation, including taking power out in about a mile and a half radius from the Draper Water Treatment Plant a week ago Monday night. Sam Stamandi and Monty Hannon are going to tell you a little bit about how we responded and what the conditions are on your property today. We begin with Mr. Stamandi.
Hello, my name is Sam Stamandi. I'm the engineering manager for the utilities, and we'll be making the presentation with Mr. Monty Hannon here. Of course, everybody knows by now that on Monday we had a serious storm in Oklahoma City. And as a result of that, the power lines were down around Draper Lake, and we lost power from OG&E to run the plant. And the strength of the storm was a very high storm in terms of strength. It was classified initially as EF3 and later on reclassified as EF4. Wind speeds somewhere around 166 to 100 miles per hour. It's pretty intense storm. As on this that you see, as a result of the storm, we got together very quickly on the evening of the Monday and decided that we needed to bring in emergency power to the plant. Decision was made, and generators were ordered from Memphis, Houston, Dallas, and we also, as a result of loss of power at Draper and loss of that water going to town, we decided to increase the capacity at Oberholzer and Hefner Water Treatment Plant to compensate for that loss. The next morning at 8:15, as one of those things that we normally do in emergency situations, the Utility Emergency Command Center was activated by the director. As a result of that, we decided to look at a lot of different things that would happen to our system and try to find good responses to all of that stuff. one of the first things that we would evaluate was the pressure system within the affected area and try to see the affected people, how many people were going to be out of water or have no pressure in the system. And another thing that we did, we quickly issued a 48-hour watering ban so that we have a control over the use of water in town. And then also start the preliminary damage assessment of the affected areas. At the same time, in order to increase our capabilities to respond to all of this stuff, we had a contractor working at Hefner Water Treatment Plant, working on the liquid oxygen project. At that time, half of the ozone system was in service and the other half was not in service, where the contractor was working. We suspended his work and brought up the second half of the basins into work, and we started chlorination with the other half. This was something that we had not done before, doing chlorination and ozonation to do primary disinfection. And that worked out really good. And we also increased the capacity. At that time, at 11:15 a.m., we were putting out about 50 million gallons a day. We also, in order to make sure that the water gets down toward the south of town, we opened up a valve that is close to Tinker Air Force to allow the water from Hefner Water Treatment go down south toward the Draper side. We also looked at a lot of different things, contingency planning, and what should we do in terms of customers are totally out of water. Fortunately, we didn't have to use any of those contingencies because we were able to catch up real quick. And at the same time, we were monitoring all the customer calls. That's a good indicator of where the problems are, where we need to pay attention to. One of the other things that we were able to do, and this is something that engineering department and the department has been working for the past few years, and that is to be able to monitor the health of the system all live. And so one of the projects that was undertaken a few years ago is to bring SCADA for our system. And this is a sketch of the SCADA screen that we had on that day. What we did, we brought in the SCADA computer to the command center, and we monitored the water quality information. We monitored all the pressures, all the flows. We monitored the tanks, and the water level in the tanks, and the pressures coming out of the plants. And in that manner, we were able to, affect and evaluate what we were doing next. Here's another screenshot of the SCADA system, where it shows the water levels in all the tanks in town. This SCADA system is really good and interactive. You can get all kinds of information about the water and where it's going, what pressure, what the flows are, where is it going and where it's not going. This was another screenshot of how we were monitoring lively the people that were having low pressure problems or having no pressure. And with the GIS system that we had, we were able to access the affected folks and have a number, how many people would be affected, by accessing the census data from the data banks. From there, we were able to determine about 70,000 people could be affected. Most of the affected area were down south of I-240 in clusters along the line that is a major feed line, which is on 89th Street. As you can see on that screen, you see a clump around 89 on Bryan, close to 89 on I-35, and some on the west side of town. The two first clumps of calls are close to Booster Station 21 and 23.
Sam, did we have any customers who had no water at all at that?
I think we had calls from, we had a connection to City of Moore, that there was an area in there that was connected to us that they were out of water because we were not pumping anything out of Draper at that time. I'm sure we've had some calls that had no water at all, but most of it had to do with low pressure calls. And most of it is because we were able to get back in service pretty quick. From here on, I'm going to let Mr. Monty Hannon to go over the rest of this operation. And
I'm Monty Hannon, Water Quality Superintendent. And about 3:30 on Tuesday, May 11th, we started receiving the generators and other equipment at the Draper plant. And the Hefner water treatment plant capacity we're starting to get the flow through the plant and increase the total capacity of the plant. We had water samples pulled along through the low pressure areas to be sure that we had, to certify the quality of the water. And all those came back with meeting the bacterial requirements. From about 8 to 2 a.m. On the 11th and 12th, we were making the generator connections and hooking up the new their transformers. We had Hefner's treatment capacity up to 75 million gallons, and we were at that time pumping about 60 million gallons out of the plant. We had completely pumped down our clear wells, so we were refilling the clear wells storage there at Hefner. Overholser was pumping about 21 million gallons, and we were refilling the storage tanks in the system. We had our after we got the Draper plant back up, we sent our line maintenance and our flushing crews out to bleed the air, make sure we had the air bled off the system. We have air relief valves, but there are some points that when the system comes back online, while it'll trap air, it slams the air release closed. And the call center was getting a lot of calls about low pressure for a while. At about 2:30 a.m., while Draper started back up, we started the treatment, and we started off at about 10 MGD, million gallons a day, and we slowly increased it to 32. We started off with about 90 pounds of pressure and gradually increased the flow. Initially, we had no pressure at booster 21 and very low pressure at 23, and these cover the area from I-240 down to just south of 89th, and from I-35 over to about Sooner Road. That's where those two booster stations supply water. And the system pressure was improving in the affected area there. And we got very few calls from then on to the emergency center, to our at line maintenance. By 3 p.m., while Draper Water Treatment Plant had their flow up to about 42 million gallons and 109 psi, and we went ahead and extended the generator lease as a contingency. The tested water samples, we got those samples back, and they were all negative for bacteria. And we had pretty well bled all the air off the lines, and we started planning for the transition back to OG&E. They could see the point where they could have us back online. We got one. They were working on one feed, and they told us that the second feed would probably take several weeks because they had almost 2 miles of poles that were knocked down. Let's see here. And about 3 p.m. on Thursday, while OG&E could give us a better time frame on when they thought they would have the power back on, and they were saying that they at about 3 p.m. they had the power available to us. We held off on switching back, and we started doing our preliminary damage assessments with our reservoirs canals group and solid waste. They went out and did estimates on the tree debris in the Stanley Draper and the West Elm Creek areas, and it looked like about 2,700 tons of tree debris that's down. The Draper plant had some fairly minor damage, mainly roof flashing and some cosmetic damage to the exterior of some of the buildings. And we started coordinating the debris cleanup over in Draper Lake with the Parks Department and Public Works. It's kind of some pictures of the damage there at Draper, which when you look at all the other damage that occurred out there, it's pretty doggone minor. This is pictures of the damage to the power poles and there at the Draper property and at West Elm Creek areas.
I want to go back. What was that last picture up on the upper right-hand corner?
That is
That's damaged private property.
that's one of the leasees' equipment. That's a combine there, I think.
That's John Deere Green?
It's a John Deere combine. It looks, I think it's what it was. It's kind of hard to tell.
Okay, thank you.
This is the picture here on the right is of the picnic area out in front of the Cross Timbers campground. And the Parks Department got in there immediately and started helping between them and RNC, where they started cleaning up the area to get it to where people could use this again. The campground, the Cross Timbers campground, is pretty well damaged. You couldn't even get through it when after the tornado went through, and the Parks Department and our guys got in there and got the trees cleared so you could get equipment in there. And we hope we're planning to have the campground available by the Memorial Day weekend. It's going to be minus a lot of trees, but it will be available for camping. We're also getting inspections on our damaged properties to make sure that they are habitable and safe for our lessees. You can kind of see this is the man speaker is the lessee of this piece of property, and we've got some more pictures of his there. It was probably the worst hit. It's pretty much devastated. There was a house out there, and that's all that's left after the tornado went through. We had two other lessees that suffered some fairly major damage. One of them was Dwayne Stever, and his was mostly the farm equipment, the tractors and combine and other equipment that he had parked out there. And Jimmy Clifton and Debbie Clifton were renting a house, and theirs was mainly outbuildings, and there was some damage to the roof on the house. We're going to have it inspected to make sure it's
Did the First Step facility receive damage?
It did not seem to be damaged. It looked like the tornado pretty much went to the south of it. I just barely missed it. And here, back up here. These are the various people that worked on the Draper project, trying to get it back up and running. And they worked a lot of hours out there through the middle of the night, and we're pretty proud of them. The Hefner and Overholser kind of filled in the gaps and brought back up those plants to get them to cover the deficit there. These people were working through the night on several nights there in a row.
And
Any questions?
we want to introduce you to Jim Crawford, the Draper plant superintendent.
Jim is the plant manager at the Draper Water Treatment Plant.
Happy to answer questions.
Are you going to keep the generator on site until the second line is completed?
Yes, we are.
Good.
Yes.
Given the
And
weather in the next few weeks, I think it's a good.
There are 2 miles of missing poles north of, we have the south feed in, and there are 2 miles of missing poles to the north. The replacement poles are on the ground, and OG&E is working there on the first mile. But I think the last I heard it could be as early as a week from now. So, yes, we'll keep the backup power. This event certainly caused us to rethink whether we need backup power on the site. So, one of the things when you have a disaster is you look at, of course, what the lessons learned are. Backup power wasn't, when we last evaluated as we were upgrading the Draper plant capacity, what didn't seem that critical, and it seemed we had the typical hardening, and now we're rethinking what our hardening is for power supplies and some other things in the system, and we'll be telling you more about that as we get the time to have thought it through. The staff responded very, very well. We had the power system in, I think, as quickly as we possibly could have. That contractor was available because we had an emergency response plan that includes that kind of information for us. We had staff available to make certain people were working safely. Brett Weingart, in our organizational process for emergency response, Brett is the real leader of that team in terms of making certain we have all the resources available, including purchasing, safety, recording information, making certain we have he's the guy who makes certain all the follow-up work gets identified and done. I'm the person who's the talking head and walks people through the process. But he's definitely...
Great job. I think
Well, just a little bit more, behind the scenes on Monday night. Marcia's got her emergency folks working, and they're coordinating with our central emergency management operations, which is up on North Martin Luther King. And then we've got the command center set up out at site. And then we knew we were going to have a press conference that night to get some information out. And we started the briefings, I guess, about 9 o'clock that night on the phone. Mr. White was there. And we were getting the information, and Marcia weighed in, started explaining the situation with the water treatment plant situation. Well, we had this press conference scheduled at 10 o'clock that night that was going to be carried live on 459 and 25. And by the way that worked out, we were able to disseminate the information immediately that we had a water problem to knock off your outside watering, and we were able to communicate that live at the because that's the best way to communicate it. You've got your sprinkler system set, and it's in the paper in the next morning. You may not see that until you've already gone to work and your sprinkler system set or something like that. So the quicker, and that's the best way to get it out is on the 10 o'clock newscast if you can do that. And we were able to make those decisions on what the parameters were going to be and get that information out quickly and go with it. Which I think by taking that action saved, because we were closer to probably having bad pressure or worse pressure in that south part of town. And if you get some suction coming in, you could have bacteria problems. We could have been in a boil order or something like that would have been very, very problematic. And we weren't that far away from some of those situations.
In the presentation, we talked about the volume of water we were producing. Well, by Tuesday, we were actually able to produce all the water that we were using. It was a question of getting it into the pressure zones in the system. Where we saw low pressure was exactly where we would have expected. Those are separate special pressure zones that provide a small amount of water to a limited number of customers in a little isolated high ground. So in terms of how the system performed, the water system, we love to know, does it work like we think it does, and it did, which helps us for long-range planning to know how the system works when it's stressed. And I think finally the emergency program from the city-county emergency program was really very helpful to us in terms of being able to help us with resources as well. The Draper site, 2,700 tons, is a pretty abstract number. I don't have a good tell you what it looks like. It's a lot of trucks full of trees. Trees weigh about 600 pounds a cubic yard when we put them in the brush trucks. We're concentrating on the most public areas first. Frankly, we had expected to get enough rain this week that we'd have our dirt roads closed because of mud and impassability from rain. That has not turned out to be the case, but we do have some dirt roads that are getting a lesser priority for accessibility than the main things, which we hope to have open for Memorial Day weekend. The Okie Dirt riders at the ORV lease are working hot and heavy to get ready for Memorial Day weekend as well. There was a lot of tree damage at that site as well, and they are just working really hard. It's amazing to see that volunteer work going on. Generally, things are passable, but they don't look great, and we have a lot of tree debris to pick up. We will be at it for months, probably, before we're all done.
What do we propose to do with the trees? What are we going to do with that? Burn it? Put it in a mulch it?
We're seeking options to burn. We don't have access to mulching in an affordable manner. There are about 20,000 tons of trees. I mentioned Draper, our reservation, about 2.7 thousand tons, about 20,000 tons total in the city from this F4 storm that went through Ward 4, a heavily wooded area of the community. Solid Waste is beginning the process of collection. We think burning is for the Draper Reservation could be very effective. There's a small amount that could be chipped. To give you an idea, we use wood chips in our wastewater sludge composting operation. The amount of wood we have on the reservation itself is enough for the whole year's program at the sludge composting operation. Unfortunately, they have a backlog of wood chips there already from going back to the 2007 storm. So we're not certain we'll be able to supply them wood chips, but we're looking at it, trying to figure out other things, talking about a specialty burn unit that would have a low smoke, low carbon output.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item's item 5. Items have to be considered individually. The first item's item 5A, which is approval of a tri-party public deposit pledge and custody agreement.
Move approval.
Have a motion and a second to approve the agreement with Bank First for Public Funds. Are there questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5A is approved. 5B is approve an agreement renewal with Oklahoma DEQ monthly reimbursement statements for October through September 10.
Move approval. Second.
Other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item B is approved. Item C, adopt a resolution of the Oklahoma City Water Utilities authorizing additional work by Vertex.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item 5C. Are there comments?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is, we've been using bill print and mail as an outsource for over 2 years now. It's time to renew that agreement, begin those discussions. We think there's some opportunities to improve the mailing services and the electronic services that our customers receive. Today, if you pay a bill online in certain formats, you still get a paper copy in the mail with the return envelope, the whole 9 yards. There are some, for example, I make check handling options or e-pay options where you physically don't get a bill. Our hope is to move the bill print and mail system along with the electronic billing system along so that we don't transfer as much paper as we currently do. I think there's as much as 60,000 bills that could be changed to paperless that get the whole 9 yards at about 60 cents a bill today. So I think there's an opportunity there. This could be time well spent.
We need to move as many paperless as we can.
Further comments?
Move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Further comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution approved. The last item on the regular agenda is adopt a joint resolution with the city, the trust, and the Oklahoma City Environmental Assistance Trust for professional training, safety training with Metro Tech.
Move approval.
A motion and a second to approve item D. Other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 5D is approved. Is there new business? Comments from the staff, trustees, citizens? Anyone want to talk? Hearing none, we're adjourned.